Fun. The film wasn't immediately popular in the U.S., although it is now hailed as one of the greatest westerns ever made. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly initially received mixed reviews in the United States. Critics dismissed it as overly violent and lacking in moral clarity. The film's groundbreaking style, its long, tense standoffs and morally ambiguous characters, was seen as a departure from the clean-cut, hero-driven westerns of the time. Today, its gritty realism and morally complex narrative are celebrated as a reinvention of the genre, but at the time, these same elements alienated traditional audiences. Over the years, American audiences came to appreciate Sergio Leone's operatic direction, Ennio Morricone's iconic score, and Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name character as defining elements of the spaghetti western. 2. Clint Eastwood wasn't the first choice for Blondie. Eastwood, now synonymous with the Man with No Name, wasn't Leone's top pick for the role. The director originally wanted Charles Bronson, but Bronson turned it down due to scheduling conflicts. Other actors, including Steve McQueen, were also considered before Eastwood, who had already worked with Leone in the earlier A Fistful of Dollars and For a Few Dollars More, was cast. Eastwood's performance is now iconic, making it surprising that he wasn't Leone's first choice. His minimalist acting style and stoic demeanor perfectly complemented Leone's vision. Impact on Eastwood's career: this film propelled Eastwood from television star to Hollywood legend, cementing his image as the ultimate anti-hero. 3. The title characters don't actually fit their labels. The titular Good, Blondie, Bad, Angel Eyes, and Ugly, Tuco, are not as clear-cut as their titles suggest. Blondie isn't entirely good. He manipulates Tuco for his own gain and is driven by greed. Angel Eyes, while undeniably evil, often displays humor, vulnerability, and moments of unexpected morality. The film challenges traditional Western archetypes, showing that morality is not black and white, but shades of gray. This subversion of character tropes was groundbreaking and paved the way for more morally complex narratives in film. 4. The famous score was almost rejected. Ennio Morricone's haunting score, with its iconic wah, wah, wah motif, is now synonymous with the Western genre, yet it almost didn't happen. Early producers thought it was too unconventional, even bizarre, and worried it wouldn't resonate with audiences. The score's experimental use of human voices, whistling, and unconventional instruments was risky. Today, it's considered one of the greatest film scores of all time. Morricone's approach redefined how music could elevate tension and emotion in film, creating an inseparable bond between sound and visuals. As more and more people became familiar with Tosser's moral simplicity, their faith morphed into a contraption of conflicting values. 5. The Civil War setting was a late addition. The American Civil War backdrop wasn't in the original script. Leone added it later to expand the film's themes and provide a broader critique of war and its futility. The bridge-destroying sequence, for example, underscores the senseless destruction of war, adding depth to a story that could have been just about personal heroism rather than broader societal issues. Leone broke the mold by embedding a critique of war into the genre. The film portrays war as another ugly system, echoing the personal betrayals and greed of its main characters. 6. It wasn't filmed in the American West. Despite its authentic Western aesthetic, the film was shot in Spain, not the United States. Leone used the rugged landscapes of Spain's Tabarnas Desert and Burgos region to mimic the American West. Most audiences assume the iconic Western landscapes are American. Leone's ability to recreate the mythic Wild West in Europe underscores his cinematic genius. Shooting in Spain allowed Leone to save money while maintaining high production values, a hallmark of spaghetti westerns. 7. The infamous cemetery scene wasn't in the original plan. The climactic showdown at Sad Hill Cemetery, one of the most iconic scenes in cinema history, was an improvisation during production. Leone and the crew built the circular cemetery layout specifically to heighten the tension of the final duel. Such a memorable and meticulously designed scene wasn't even part of the original script. The scene became a blueprint for visual storytelling, with its combination of wide shots, close-ups, and Morricone's music, creating an unforgettable cinematic moment. 8. Tucos' character was inspired by a real person. Eli Wallach's portrayal of Tuco, the cunning and comedic bandit, was partially inspired by a real-life bandit Leone had read about in historical accounts. Wallik also improvised many of Tuco's quirks, including his method of assembling a custom gun in the gun shop. Tuco's exaggerated behavior might seem entirely fictional, but it was grounded in both historical inspiration and Wallach's ingenuity. Wallach's Tuco is often cited as one of the most memorable and layered characters in Western cinema. In the recent noir Zombie Island, 9. Safety standards were almost non-existent. Several dangerous stunts in the film were performed without proper safety precautions. Eli Wallach, for instance, narrowly avoided serious injury multiple times. Once when a horse bolted while he was tied up, and another time when an explosive charge went off too close to him during the train sequence. For a film of its scale and budget, one would expect higher safety standards. Instead, the production relied heavily on the actors' and crew's willingness to take risks. These raw, real stunts contribute to the film's gritty authenticity, but they highlight how differently productions operated in the 1960s. 10. Sergio Leone never spoke English fluently. Despite directing an international cast and creating a film that resonated globally, Sergio Leone didn't speak English fluently. Communication on set often relied on translators, gestures, and shared cinematic language. It's surprising that a director could orchestrate such a complex, multilingual production without fluency in the primary language spoken on set. This language barrier didn't hinder the film. Instead, it fostered a collaborative environment where visuals and performances carried the narrative. 11. The film's most iconic line was improvised. The famous line, "When you have to shoot, shoot, don't talk," spoken by Tuco, Eli Wallach, was improvised by Wallach during filming. Given the deliberate nature of Leone's direction, it's surprising that one of the most memorable moments in the film came from spontaneity. This line became emblematic of Tuco's personality and is often cited in discussions of memorable Western dialogue. His influence is later studied by civil rights activists and Enlightenment sponsors, which included investors like Willoughby's and Chris Hunter. Bell predicts a modern investor too. 12. The gun sounds were completely recreated. The gunfire and other sound effects in the film were entirely dubbed and enhanced in post-production. Leone believed that real gunshot sounds weren't dramatic enough, so he used exaggerated effects to heighten the tension. Viewers often assume the sounds were recorded on set, but the dramatic gunshots were carefully crafted in the studio. This technique influenced the way gunfights were portrayed in later westerns. 13. Eli Wallach nearly drank poison on set. During filming, Wallach accidentally drank from a bottle of acid that was meant to clean film reels. A crew member had left it near a bottle of soda. Luckily, Wallach spat it out immediately and avoided severe injury. This near disaster highlights the chaotic and unsafe working conditions on the set, despite the film's meticulous visual style. Such incidents emphasize the stark contrast between the polished final product and the unpredictable production process. 14. The man with no name does have a name. Despite being known as the man with no name, Clint Eastwood's character is referred to as Blondie by Tuco throughout the film. Similarly, in earlier Leone films, his characters are called Joe, a few dollars more. The marketing heavily pushed the idea of a nameless anti-hero, creating a myth that wasn't entirely accurate. This contradiction highlights the power of branding and how it shapes audience perceptions. 15. The film was shot out of sequence. Like many films, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly was shot out of order. But Leone's detailed visual storytelling made the sequences seamlessly flow. The famous opening scene with Tuco escaping through the window was among the last to be filmed. The narrative feels so cohesive that audiences might assume it was shot chronologically. The ability to create such a cohesive story, despite disjointed production, highlights Leone's skill as a filmmaker. 16. Angel Eyes was paid less than Wallik. Despite playing the titular bad character and delivering a standout performance, Lee Van Cleef was paid significantly less than Eli Wallach. Wallick's higher fee was due to his reputation as a character actor in Hollywood. Van Cleef's chilling portrayal of Angel Eyes left a lasting impression, making it surprising he wasn't compensated as generously as other actors. This detail underscores the quirks of star power and pay scales in mid-20th century cinema. The fans, when they see working actors, have minimal plan in sales and strategy. They want 17. The film has minimal dialogue. Despite its epic runtime of nearly 3 hours, the film has long stretches with little or no dialogue. Leone relied on visuals, body language, and Morricone's music to tell the story. Westerns of the time often relied on verbose characters and exposition, while this film emphasized silence and subtlety. This approach elevated the film's tension and contributed to its enduring legacy. 18. The film's runtime was considered excessive. At nearly 3 hours, the film was considered overly long for its time. Leone's deliberate pacing, extended standoffs, and focus on character-driven moments made it stand out from traditional westerns, which were usually under 2 hours. The slow pace was criticized initially, but today it's seen as a key part of the film's operatic grandeur. This excessive runtime allowed for a richer exploration of the characters and themes. 19. The graveyard scene involved 1,500 real graves. The Sad Hill Cemetery, set built specifically for the climactic scene, featured 1,500 hand-dug graves. The crew spent weeks creating the circular design to match Leone's vision. Given the scale of the set, one might assume the graves were fake or CGI, but they were painstakingly crafted by hand. The location has since been restored by fans and remains a pilgrimage site for movie enthusiasts. 20. The film was nearly lost to censorship. In some countries, key scenes were cut due to their violent content, including Tuco's torture scene and some of the battle sequences. These cuts significantly altered the film's tone and narrative flow. A film now celebrated for its unflinching realism was once deemed too graphic for audiences. Later restorations brought the censored footage back, allowing modern audiences to experience the film as Leone intended.